It's Ash here from the Retro Gaming blog, and I'm here with David Whiddon, and we're here to discuss his progress through the gaming industry and how he got into that, and we'll go from there. So, David, thank you for coming along.
No worries, mate. Happy to be here.
So we've got a list of questions for you. So we'll just start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, where you work, and what kind of work is involved within that on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. So I'm from Australia, but I'm currently working over in Montreal, and I'm working for Ubisoft. The game I'm working on right now is actually Far Cry 5, which I'm super excited about because we've only just been able to announce it just before E3. So that's been super exciting for everyone to finally hear it and see it. But as day to day, my job is a level artist. Basically, I'm a 3D artist, and I build the world. I place objects, I design placeholders, I kind of work directly with the level designers to help create the vision that they've got, so the gameplay is fun but also actually looks good for when you do play the game.
Cool, because it's been quite a while. I mean, we met on the 3D Palace forums back in 2005. Tell us about how you got involved with the 3D Palace forum, and was it always 3D that was something that you wanted to pursue?
Well, so as a kid I wanted to be a pilot, and then like about a month before I finished high school, some guys called me into the computer room when I had a free period and said, hey, you got to check this out. And they showed me a program called Bryce 5, which is a 3D program that was basically really terrible. But within a minute, you could create an island and have snow on the top and have sun coming off the water. And so to me at the time, that was just amazing. I can't remember exactly how I found 3D Palace. I think it was actually through 3D Buzz. Because at the time, they were the two big websites that I basically used because they had full video tutorials. A big shout out to Chris, Old Blue.
Because obviously I remember from that, it wasn't too far along that you then started working with Team Bondi on LA Noire.
That actually came about, I went and studied for 1 year, but turned out based on the training I got from Chris that I actually knew more than the teachers. So wow. That wasn't a good use of my time. But after that, I basically, I'd met a guy, because I was doing an indie game that never ended up getting seen. But one of the guys I met on that indie game, he basically took me under his wing and basically was teaching me the finer points of being a 3D artist. Big shout out to my mate Chip. I then made a demo reel where I put a DVD together, printed it out, made it look super fancy because I figured if my work isn't going to be good enough, they're going to be impressed by the packaging. I then sent it to every company in Australia that made games, from mobile games to big AAA games. At the time, there was a few companies actually doing them. Actually, only got a call back from one of them, and that was Team Bondi to work on LA Noire. So
what a call to get, though.
It was unreal.
Were you aware of who they were and what they were working on before you went for the job?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd seen, because they'd released a teaser trailer, which pretty much none of the stuff in the teaser trailer got in the final game. It was just kind of a mood piece, and it was pretty cool. And I remember seeing that and was super excited to be working on that game. Hell, I was just super excited to be working in the games industry.
Because this was back in Australia, wasn't it? This was when you were...
That's right, back in Sydney.
Back home, yeah. Okay, so what skills in particular did you learn on that project? And do you still use any of those skills today?
So I learned tons, because there's only so much you can learn on your own when you're teaching yourself or when you're at a institution. But when you're actually at work and you're needing to do stuff, you learn so much really quickly. One of the things I did learn was scripting, which is really good fun. I learned some Mel script while I was working on it, which allowed me to make some tools to kind of help speed up the production. And that I really enjoy. I really enjoy that kind of technical side. I get a lot better at texturing, and my modeling improved as well, and just kind of understanding more about 3D, not just from being able to move polygons around, but understanding kind of what you're creating in terms of setups and the stories of different setups, and probably the big things I learned.
So how long were you at Team Bondi for then?
Just under 5 years.
Okay, and that whole entire time was spent specifically for LA Noire?
The last few months were post LA Noire, when we started working on a new project. The vast majority of that 5 years was actually LA Noire.
Okay, all right, moving on. So how did you transition? Because straight away after that, you found yourself at Ubisoft. And obviously there was a lot of life changes with that. So could you just tell us a little bit about that and what changes were made to accommodate this new job that you were getting?
Well, actually, the lead artist that I worked with on LA Noire, he got a job with Ubisoft here in Montreal. And we'd started a new company after Team Bondi, and we were working on a new game. And anyway, he basically contacted me and said, would you like a job here in Montreal with Ubisoft? And of course I said yes. Um, this is the kind of guy who would I literally followed halfway around the world to work with.
Hmm.
Um, his name's Ben Brudenell. He's in the UK actually. He's a fantastic guy. And yeah, so basically he put my name forward, and then HR contacted me from Ubisoft, and one thing leads to another, and a few months later, I'm actually on an airplane flying halfway around the world to French Canada.
So that's a big change, isn't it? Straight from Sydney to that. What kind of processes did you have to go through? Did you like? 'Cause you obviously had to find living accommodation and things like that.
Well, the good thing is that Ubisoft gave me a hotel for a month as part of the transfer deal. So I had a month to find a place. They also had a deal with a company that's a relocation expert, where they give you somebody to drive you around for the first few days, help you find a place, help you get all your paperwork and healthcare and all that fun stuff dialed in. Yeah, a month is a pretty reasonable time to kind of find your feet in a new country, even if you struggle with the language.
What's your most proudest project you've worked on to date, and why?
It's tough because I'm super proud to have worked on all the projects. LA Noire is probably the special one because it's the first, and it was so big. Like at the time, it was the biggest game ever made in Australia. I think it still is.
Hmm.
Um, we set a record. It was the fastest selling original IP in the UK, and prior to that, the previous record holder was The Getaway, who actually was made by my boss from Team Bondi.
Okay, so advice. So, do you have any advice for people who might be thinking about breaking into the industry?
It's a lot of hard work when you're in the industry. It's not a cakewalk by any means. The best skill, if you're wanting to work on any kind of skill, isn't the skills like being able to texture well or model well, is to be a fast learner. I think that's a super important skill that most people kind of overlook. Because if you're gonna be shown new processes, new tools, new techniques, and you want to be able to take those and kind of run with them as quickly as possible.
What about your hobbies and interests? So, I know obviously it's quite obvious you have hobbies, as there's one hanging on the wall behind you. And we've talked about this at large, and we did also touch on like how you were saying about Eagle Flight was kind of a melding of, what you saw as your hobby and that game that was released. So your hobbies and interests, do they actually impact your work in a creative way?
The big thing about having any hobby outside of work is it allows you to disconnect from your work, so you're not completely consumed with it, and so you can come in every day fresh. So my hobbies, I fly remote control airplanes and drones, and also design them as well. And I do find that my day-to-day work helps me design them because I can actually do the modeling in 3D and kind of just use regular 3D programs to create these things. Um, does it help me with work? A little bit, but that's more so just because of the interest in aviation. So that if we had an airplane in a game, I'm able to point out and say, well, that propeller's gone the wrong way, or not too much.
Anyway, okay, so going all the way back, so now you know what you know now, and say if you could go all the way back to 2005 to 2008, when you were kind of treading on that territory of getting into the games industry, is there anything your older self would tell your younger self that you may have found useful?
I was really lucky that how everything kind of started off pretty slowly for me. Um, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. So I wouldn't really actually have any terribly exciting advice to give to me. Just kind of stick with it. When it's really tough and you're working those long hours, that it's worth it. Um, we worked many long hours, as been documented on LA Noir, and yeah, I just say just make sure you hang in there because there is better out there. Like if you are in a really hellish situation at your work, however you might think it is, um, there is better out there. But also enjoy where you are because kind of the great thing was that I kind of came out of there almost battle hardened.
Mm.
So that when I got to LA, I was working on Assassin's Creed and we got to the crunch time at the end, and one of the guys on the team was panicking about how much work was going to be, how much bugs were going to come in, and I was just as calm as you get, and because I was like, this isn't hard, this is easy. I was going home at a reasonable time, and I'm like, this is great, this isn't crunch. So yeah, if you are going through hard stuff, kind of appreciate it while you're doing it because you are learning how to handle,
Mm.
which is very important in this industry because if you start panicking when it comes to crunch time, you're not the person they want on the team.
Yeah. So how does it work in terms of like you got your deadlines, and do you have that deadline you have to finish no matter what, or do you guys just pile on more extra hours, or or should it not even get to that point? Should it all kind of be managed systematically so you're hitting certain targets, milestones every step of the way of the project? Or does it just never happen like that? There's always kind of just that last minute polishing.
In a perfect world, there would never be any crunches and no overtime and all that. But that's unfortunately not the real world scenario. Basically, the schedules they do their best to try to plan stuff, but late in a project, things always change. It's always a, hey, look, why don't we improve this feature, and that means a level has to change or something of that sort. So that's kind of always the case, that you're always needing to polish stuff at the end, and it's always a rush at the end because there's always bugs that get into a game. Doesn't matter what game it is, doesn't matter how long the production is. There's always little tiny bugs. It could be like a little floating rock, or that most people will never see, but they're there, and you might you'll have a list of bugs at the end that at the end they just have to waiver. So I find when I was working on Far Cry Primal, I was actually working a bunch of extra hours just to clean up all those little bugs that most people would never see anyway, just for my own personal desires. But yeah, there's plenty of times when you do have to work extra time because you're running behind schedule or whatever. Sometimes things take longer than expected, or you're waiting on somebody to finish something and they're running behind. That knocks onto you, and then anyone who's waiting on you to finish as well. So that's kind of the reality of all game dev.
Looking at people who want to get into the industry, so what's the first step for them, would you say, in their career ladder? I mean, obviously it's quite a wide spectrum because there's so many different facets to go down and different roles to play within making a video game. But what would you kind of say that was like a canvas piece of advice for someone that wanted to get started?
I'd say try to specialize. Many people, I know I did, when I started, I was trying to learn everything. Like I was learning particles, I was learning all kinds of rendering, texturing, everything. Work out what you're really interested in and really try to focus on that. So if you enjoy doing vehicles, awesome. Just make vehicles, like make cars, make spaceships, make motorbikes, make vehicles. If you like characters, go nuts. Design characters, make them all. If you like environments, which is what I do, then try making cool environments that have a fun little story in them. But try to specialize, because if you try to do environments, you try to do characters, try to do vehicles, you try to do a bit of everything, you'll find that your overall quality of work will suffer. And also it's a bit harder to get hired, because generally companies will hire, especially bigger companies anyway, will try to be hiring someone who's a bit more specialized. Look, I think if whatever you're creating, create. Whether you're trying to create, like let's say from the outside, if you're trying to just create art, and it's for a little dinky iPhone game, or it's for an indie game, just creating is going to help you. The process, you're going to learn, you're going to speed up. Especially when you're new, getting fast will really help you get over, because when you make an error, you can fix it quickly. So yeah, I think just the matter of actually doing it, doesn't matter what platform it's for. Although that comes down to my last point of trying to specialize. If you are interested in mobile games, awesome, make mobile game art. And if there's little mobile apps that you can make games for, do it, and that'll help you then when you have a portfolio piece to show a mobile game dev studio. Say, look what I've made, and hell, you can even pull out your phone and say, look, have a play if you've made a full game. So that's probably really handy.
If you could sum up everything about your whole experience within the industry in one word, what would it be?
Perseverance. The great thing is that there's so many amazing games being made these days by so many amazing studios. Just look at E3 or any of the big events, and they're all made by people like you and me. It's just average people who love games, who love creating, who love what they do. So bring your passion along and your hard work, and you're going to do well.